don't go in search of a system to settle a decision that hasn't been made. A lot of times people get frustrated with a system, whatever the system is, and it's mostly a matter of training. It's a matter of processes. If you're going to go through the whole process of a technology change or any big technology project, make sure you understand the problem that you're trying to solve. I think that's probably the most important thing.
Welcome to the Modern Membership Org podcast, where we sit down weekly with tech experts, nonprofit leaders, and industry representatives to go through the wins and losses on the modernization journey. My name's Riley. I'm your host with Bursting Silver, and each week we release new episodes where we talk about these new trends that are coming up and opportunities to improve your systems and better serve your members. Thanks for joining the conversation, and we're looking forward to modernizing together. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Modern Membership Org podcast. My name's Riley here with Bursting Silver, and we did take a little hiatus last week from ASI's Crazy, but we're back here with a powerhouse episode now. We have two fonts of knowledge in the association space coming at you. One's a return guest with James Harrison, who is leading a conversation with a new guest on the call, Jeff Spring with ASI. He's been in the association community for more than 25 years. He started cutting his teeth as an authorized solution provider out in Seattle and spent many years on that side until he moved over to work with ASI at their ASI Center for Technical Excellence in Austin, Texas, where he now works between clients, partners, consultants, ASI management, and the development teams. He's got his hands in many pies, and he's quite vocal in the space for the future of the iMIS EMS system and everything involved in the development there. So really excited to hand it over to James as he leads the conversation with Jeff, and they'll get into the roots. These guys have been working together for, James, as we heard before, 15 years in the industry, where he's worked closely alongside Jeff as well. So very interesting conversation. Excited for you to listen to it. And without further ado, I'll toss it those guys' way.
Excellent. Thanks, Riley. Jeff, really, really good to have you here. I know we did a few road shows together there earlier this year, Chicago, New York, and we talked about this, and now it's a reality. Now you're here, so that's
It's great to be here. Thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it. It's always good to hang out with you.
Thanks. And I do have to add, one of my favorite parts about the roadshow was your AI tools that you use to create the itinerary for your motorcycle trip. So I think it was Gemini. I used to ride a motorcycle, so that's why I liked it.
There's always good motorcycle stories. We'll save that for another time, but that was a lot of fun.
Sounds good. Excellent. All right, let's jump in. I definitely have a couple of great questions for you. And first, just back to what Riley was saying really there, you've had a good number of years, I think 17, working first as a partner, and then you started working with ASI, who are the owners of iMIS, for almost that amount of time. Yeah, so maybe can you share with me a little bit of how that transition happened from partner to vendor?
Yeah, sure. So, I guess about 17 years ago now, I had spent my whole life in Seattle, and I kind of felt like I was ready for a change of pace, a change of scenery. And I had always liked Austin. We'd come here for conferences and training and that kind of stuff and hang out. And the sort of vibe between Seattle and Austin is very similar. Culture is fairly similar. Weather's a lot nicer, a little more laid back. There was a lot happening in Seattle with Amazon coming up and Microsoft and all the technology happening there, which was great, but it really kind of changed the city a lot and kind of made me think that maybe I wanted to try something else. So there was a spot for a product manager open here in Austin with ASI, and it felt like a good fit. And so came on down. And back in those days, you had to actually go into the office. And so along with the new job came a new home in Austin. So it's been great ever since. I've loved it.
Excellent. Yeah, definitely nicer weather for sure. I've been to Seattle, and I've been there twice actually, and it rained only the one time, so I got a little bit of nice weather. But
there's really no more beautiful place in the world on a nice, maybe September day. But yeah, I was just ready for a change. So it's good to mix things up every once in a while.
Yeah, Austin's beautiful. Absolutely. So having been on both sides and now myself, I'm on the partner side. And what do you wish that people like myself and partners understood about how the ASI's product decisions get made and how they actually get made in the process?
Yeah. Well, I think coming from the partner community, I still have a lot of friends, you and
Yeah.
a lot of friends in the partner community who are, working with iMIS all day, and we work with you guys all the time. And I think that that really is part of what makes the community so strong is that if things come up, we can just talk about it. It's not we're all on the same side and working to give the customers the best things. So I think that I feel like we have pretty good communication between us and the partners. And, if there's ever any questions that you have, you're welcome to come to us. I think for the most part, partners understand, or if they don't, I would like them to understand that our backlog of work to do is pretty much infinite. Our capacity to do the work is definitely not infinite. So we really have to make hard decisions about what we're going to prioritize and what we're going to put time into. IMIS is a really big system, and a lot of partners focus on a single vertical market so that they have customers that need the same things and work with the same things. And so, if you're working with one particular market, it may be obvious that that market needs something. And that may not necessarily be the case across all of iMIS customers, so we have to take all that input and all that feedback from different partners, different customers in all types of different markets and kind of boil that down to what are the things that are going to provide the most value to the most of our customers. We also need to make sure that we're going in directions that support our own corporate goals. We've been moving iMIS to a SaaS product now. That's going great. We've got most of our
Great.
customers by far now are using our iMIS EMS cloud product. And, you know, when we started that move, if we would have just kind of hung back and listened to what everybody wanted, we wouldn't
Mm.
be nearly as far as we are now. So we've got to kind of balance those out, where we want to go, what it's going to take to get there, and what are the things that we need to give our customers and you guys so that you can all be successful.
That makes a lot of sense, absolutely, and I remember going to some of those early innovations conferences back in the day when I started, and, I was only a developer back then, and there were
Only.
sessions. Yes, yes, exactly, and there were sessions with the developers that were working on the product, and you could ask them questions, and you got back and forth, yeah, and it's always felt like that, and that's really, I think, made things as it is with the partner network as strong as they are, and that connection's always been there, and
Yeah.
looking back at your years now that you have had sort of a perspective on both sides. So again, I've only seen the partner perspective, and but you've certainly also maybe doubled me almost in years too. I'm at 15, and my gosh, wow, I'm impressed. So
Thanks for telling everybody I'm old. I
whoops,
appreciate that,
whoops.
James.
Yeah, we can edit that out, right? Yeah. No, but really, what I'd love to ask about is having had that experience and that number of years, what have you seen that are challenges maybe that associations are only dealing with recently and didn't exist, let's say 10 years ago or more? Yeah.
Well, the obvious one is AI. Everybody wants to rush and get into AI, and I know you guys are doing great work with AI and some of your products that are helping to leverage that.
Thanks.
I think one of the things that we see and hear from clients, organizations that are looking at AI is that the AI expectations are sometimes coming before the readiness. So they want to jump in, they want to implement AI. Maybe they don't even quite know what problems they're wanting to solve, but we have to have AI because that's what everybody's doing. And so, obviously, that's a new one. I think the expectations of a lot of membership organizations are set by some of the dominant market leaders. Amazon, for example, everybody thinks that they should be able to have an Amazon like shopping experience, but how much does Amazon spend on their
Yeah.
shopping experience?
Yes. Yeah.
It's a
Exactly.
lot.
Yeah.
So those balancing those expectations with, what's realistic to roll out for an organization your size, whatever your size might be. I think that's something that we're seeing a lot of. Generational changes also. I think a lot of younger professionals are less likely to kind of follow established paths, and one of those being joining their industry associations. Younger professionals get their information a lot differently than, say, you and I do, and
Yeah.
they may not be rushing to join your organizations, but that's also really really key to making sure that your organization stays healthy and stays vibrant and is able to keep growing.
Absolutely. I can relate to that a lot. And there was the only way to get the information 15 years ago was to go to the conference or the
Right.
association meetings. You
Yeah.
didn't have the internet like you do today to just quickly go and find it. So you're absolutely right about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing I think that we need to make sure that everybody understands is that there's still no substitute for sitting down together and just having a conversation and talking. We work with you guys all the time, but when we were
Yeah.
hanging out in New York and in
Yeah.
Chicago at the road shows, you can have a different level of exchange and you can kind of just sit back and relax and you don't have to follow a meeting agenda. You just talk about whatever's on your mind. And I think that's really important. And that's hard to get from anywhere other than an organization that's geared up towards that.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. And actually, funny enough, I'm in the office today, and this is the one day of the week that I come in. And we're all used to working from home, and you know what? It really is that connection you have with people when you see them in person. Yeah, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it sure
And I
does.
agree. Yeah. And again, so those are some of the things that sort of have changed recently. Certainly, AI is a huge one. That's and I liked what you're saying. Just don't throw technology at it just because it's the latest thing. And but now, looking back over the same period, what has stayed the same? So, for example, with associations, maybe what are the same? What problems and challenges have they been sort of facing that hasn't changed over that time period? Yeah.
Yeah, that some of the things that I've seen and that I've noticed over the many years is that change management really is the whole job. You've got to keep your organization moving forward with technology. You've got to be rolling out new programs to bring people in to catch interest. And all of those things are changes. And usually it's just kind of assumed that that will work, that will happen. And that's not usually the case. It's got to be something that's very intentional. It probably needs to be budgeted for. You really need to
Mm,
plan that into your project. If you don't have that planned into your project is gonna struggle. Some of the other things that I've seen over the years that haven't changed or that every organization is unique. They all have unique things. Sometimes, they've just been doing something because that's the way it started 25 years ago when
mhm.
the membership manager was, 4 or 5 people ago and they taught the next person who taught the next person who taught the next
Right.
person and that just became the way that we do things here. And that's also something that I think people need to watch out for and be aware of and learn to get by because the world has moved on a lot in that time. Another thing that I see is that small organizations aren't necessarily simpler or easier than larger organizations. They just have to do more with less. The smaller organizations still need to run conferences. They still
Mm,
need to handle their renewals. They still need to run committees. They still need to run training. They still need to do all of those things. So they've got to be very, very careful about how they use their resources to do those things.
absolutely. Yeah. Go ahead.
What are some of the things that you've seen over the
Honestly, I
years?
I have noticed that and again, going back to when I first started with the training that I did with iMIS, it
Mm.
was, okay, Keith said, "Hey," so Keith, my boss at the time, Visual Antidote, said, "Hey, we've gotta sign you up. It's coming up in 3 weeks for the course on how to build iParts." And it was literally, "You've gotta get that course then, or it doesn't come back for another year."
Yeah,
And
right.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's right. It's
and
not like that anymore, is it?
no, no, absolutely not. And but it's funny when you were saying about how you've got these older sort of decisions that were pushed, kept. The tradition almost has been kept within an organization. And I've done a lot of implementations. I've worked with clients who've been on IMIS for 10, 15 plus years. And what's interesting is you ask them, why are you doing something a certain way? And I don't know if I got this. Somebody sharing a joke with me or a comedian I saw, but I love the adage where you've got the story about how to cook a roast beef,
Yeah,
and
right.
you've got the tradition of cutting off both ends, and oh, we just learned how to do that, and that's the right way to do, so passed down from my grandparents, and then you just find
Right.
out the pans were much smaller back in the day.
Yeah. Grandma didn't have a pan big enough for the whole roast beef.
That's it. Yeah.
But that's how it happens. And if the ends aren't cut off, we can't put it on the table.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
there's a lot of that.
Yeah, and it happens, and once you start to poke and you ask about, okay, well, but why? You get a little bit further, then you realize that, oh, it is really just a decision that people have been repeating, and then they look at things again, and I think the connection part for me definitely is the one part that stays the same. And I think also too, they've been collecting a lot of data over the years, and there's more data that they can collect. And I remember you and I chatted a little while back, actually, about that specifically, and I think what you'd mentioned is that organizations that have been on iMIS and other systems for 10, 15, 20 years, they've got a lot that they've been collecting. And I think that what you'd said is that some of them might not know what to do with all that data. Yeah, can you expand on that a little bit, what you meant there? Yeah,
Yeah, of course. We have customers that have been using iMIS for as long as you and I have been working with iMIS. So we have customers that have been using it for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years plus. In fact, iMIS customer number one is still using iMIS. So
great.
they've got 30 plus years of data or of
Yeah,
experience with it. And that data, I think, for most organizations is really one of their most valuable assets, but you've got to know what to do with it. So you've got years and years of things like event registration, session attendance, course completions, committee service, volunteer hours, dues payments, emails, website activity, certifications. The list goes on and on and on. All those things that you have, and you don't usually make a conscious decision to collect that. It just happens with each interaction between an organization and the member. And you end up with that really rich history of how the member fits with the organizations, how they interact with the organizations, how they contribute to or benefit from the mission of that organization. So, yeah, I think that's probably one of the most important things that an organization can do is to start making some sense of all of that data. And a lot
absolutely.
of organizations have a hard time with that.
Yeah, yeah, is that right? And they don't know almost what to do with it, but hey, maybe it's good that they have it because they have it to kind of look through. I think about I have family up north who recently cleaned their basement out, and it was a bit of an exercise of, oh, I don't want to let that go, and oh, I didn't know I had that. I could use that, right? So
Yeah,
there's
right.
these little finds. You've got that data, you can find these nuggets. Now there's these tools, of course, that you can help you kind of put relations together of that data that you didn't have before, you didn't know about
Yeah,
before. And I
yeah.
know at the roadshows you're presenting, for example, data warehousing, I'm really excited about, and the features that it can, or almost like the connections that it can unearth and show and daylight. And what if you've got 15 years of data, you can do a lot more with that tool than somebody who's just got a year's worth of data or so forth. But if someone listening right now wanted to get something useful out of the data they already have, where would you tell them to start, for example?
I think some of the best places to start, like anything else, is to just start. That it's always that first step is always the hardest. And then once you get a little bit of momentum, you figure out what works, what doesn't, what's helpful, what's not, then you can adjust based on those. But I think a good place to start is to start with some questions that are specific enough that a person can answer those questions, act on that answer, and see some progress, see something happening. So something like, which education programs show up in the history of members who renew every year, for 10-year members, 15-year members, what kinds of things are they doing? And then maybe compare that with people who are not sticking around, people who have dropped, who've let their memberships lapse, and see what the difference is there, and see if you can get the people who aren't doing the things that make a member stick around, see if you can get those weaved in. It's a real tangible benefit to something that really starts with the data and examining the data. Kind of a fun exercise to do is to pull 3 years of non-renewals and then take a look at their engagement patterns for, say, the 24 months before they left and see what you can see for similarities. You mentioned our data warehouse tool, which we're calling iMIS Fusion. That's something that I'm really excited about. We're using Power BI, which has Copilot as a plain English reporting engine tool. So you can ask Power BI for all the data that you have available in your warehouse. So you can get those kind of things as once you start collecting that data. So the tools are really coming along and those are really helpful. But I think it's really important to start with something that's tangible, something that you can walk away with something that's actionable. I was talking to somebody a while ago about how they're kind of rolling into learning about their data, and they made the staff guess about the answers. They'd define a question and say, okay, we're going to look at which education programs show up in the history of our renewing members. And the staff would write their answers down and guess, and then they dive into the data to find out how close they were. Most people who work with a membership organization, they really feel like they know their people because they talk to them every day. They see them at
Yeah,
conferences. They feel like they have their fingers on the pulse. So it's kind of an eye opener to see where the data backs that up and where the data says something different.
that's a fun game to play actually with your staff to really get them involved too.
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
that.
How well do you know?
Yeah.
Another thing that I think is helpful is to give it an hour and a name. Just have one person give them an hour a week and give it the title of look at the data.
Yeah. But yeah, I think actually what you're referring to there, and I like the new name, by the way, for data warehousing there, iMIS Fusion. And I think that was referring to, so first of all, I've seen a demo of it, and I loved how you can just write in plain English what data you're looking for. And it'll use AI to then turn that into a report and so forth. And I think so. Where do you, in general, just because you've worked closely with that, and where do you see that heading? So that combination of data that they didn't, the clients didn't know that they sort of was as useful as it could be, and maybe is now, with these new tools that are coming along. So what do you think is kind of coming up, and what's possible soon? Yeah.
Well, I think there are a couple of levels. First of all, the day you start using those tools, we're using Microsoft Fabric as the back end, which is a
Okay.
specific data warehouse, Microsoft specific data warehouse platform. Put all your data in there, and it, especially with iMIS and with the activity history that you have a lot of depth to your data, and you can really get in that. And using tools like Power BI with the Copilot report writer, this is a place where I think AI is really poised to step in and do a lot of good for us. It's good at doing things like examining huge sets of data, finding correlations, and which events lead to renewals. And what's the participation profile of a 10-year member? How can we nudge more people into doing those things that cause people to stick around? As those tool sets evolved, you don't necessarily need a specialist anymore. You don't get better analysis from somebody who has an analyst in their title, because the tools start making those connections for you. When anybody on the staff can ask a question in plain English and get an answer that they can act on, that they can move forward with, that's going to be really huge. I think that's going to really help help organizations to focus, people in organizations to focus on where we want to go with this. That also makes it much more accessible. All of that information becomes part of your daily workflow. You don't have to, you don't have a quarterly dashboard that nobody goes to. You can see right on the member record what the health of this particular person is. Is this person somebody, are they doing the things that will cause them to stick around, or are they starting to drift? Have we not heard from them for a while? Are they not getting involved in the organization? I know that's something that you guys have been doing some work
Mm,
with too.
absolutely. Yeah, we're very excited about AI, and I like how you're mentioning there how it really kind of makes everyone an expert, or more of an expert than they were before. And it's almost like you had to spend a lot of money or time to get that report up to date. Now you can just quickly do it, and it's accurate, and you're just going to see a lot more information that's daylighted. We're very interested in AI features that we can use to look at members' data to get segmentation out of that.
Yeah.
So you can
Yeah.
make a lot of connections you didn't know you had, and even personalizing those connections and outreaches and communication to them. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
the
think.
work that you guys are doing there is great. One final
Thanks.
word on this, I
Thanks.
think, is worth
Yeah.
mentioning, that
Yeah.
none of this can fix bad data. So AI can confidently give you spectacularly wrong answers much faster than any person can if the data is inconsistent, or the data is, is a mess. So it's really important to keep the humans involved there to review what the AI says, give it a little fact check, a little sanity check, dive in a little bit deeper if something looks kind of off. I know just in my own daily AI use,
Yes.
I get some horribly wrong answers when I say, no, that doesn't sound right. Oh, yes, Jeff, you're right. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah.
And then it goes on. So,
Yes.
but somebody's got to check that stuff.
I agree. And actually, in our workplace here, we've made it so we're all very active in AI, but we made it very clear and important that, hey, anything that it produces, you have that's your what you've written or what you said. So you have to
You're on the
back
hook
it up
for it.
and double check it. Yes, exactly. And actually, I find that these tools, it's an exciting time because you have the ability to, and I've really been keeping an eye on the news and so forth lately, and noticed that even the way that it's been talked about, it's moving away from, oh, AI is going to replace people, to now AI is going to enhance people. So every staff member you have becomes a superhero and can do a lot more, essentially. And that means also too, maybe they were tied down in manual things or processes that were onerous. Now they can reach out to members more and connect with
Yeah.
members more, and it just
Yeah.
gives them more time and ability. And we found that with our company as well. We've really implemented AI across the company now, and actually still hired new staff, new grads recently, and so that's exciting. And I think that's the same I've seen with other associations and our clients. And that's the right direction, I think, with AI. It's an exciting time that we're in, absolutely, right now.
Yeah. AI
Yeah.
do a lot of analysis. It can do a lot of really smart things, but one of the most important things that associations do is connect people, and AI doesn't
Yes.
do that well. So, a conversation like this or a beer after the conference is
Yeah.
infinitely more valuable, and that's a better place for people to be spending their time.
I agree with you on that. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. More in-person time or even in a meeting like this rather than emails, texting, and,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think ultimately that connection, all of our clients really, they're trying to connect all their members, and if anyone else wants to come in the office on Wednesdays, okay, that's our day,
Yeah.
guys. Yeah, yeah, coming back. A couple things to kinda circle back, and I really I do like having the connection that we have with ASI and iMIS and having, sort of a little bit of an insight into how things work in the background, and we share a lot of information, but I'd love to just dive a little bit further into that because there's still a little bit under the hood that I don't know about, and I'm sure some of the listeners are going to be curious about. So, for example, maybe they do want to give some feedback, and they do have some maybe new features that they want to tell you about. And so, where does that go? And then what happens to it in the background after you receive that feedback? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd love to talk about that. We have at enhancements.imus.com, we have an enhancement forum, and that feeds directly into our product planning tool. So when somebody submits an idea there, one of the product management team goes through and reviews those, matches it up with the item if there's already something in the backlog for it, uh, makes notes of whatever the comments are so that we can build a history, we can build the insights of what we're hearing from our customers or our partners about a particular feature and why it's valuable. It's really helpful for us if we can get use cases for these things. Don't just say I want Google Wallet. I want to tell me
Mm,
why. Tell me what,
yeah,
are you hearing from your customers that they'd be more likely to check out, that's a friction point that causes them to bail out of a transaction, that kind of stuff. We really want to hear why things are important. That helps us a lot. And we do review all
context.
that
Yeah.
feedback and we use it when we're doing our planning for future development work.
No, that's excellent. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense that you need that context more and not just, oh, they're just asking for a shiny new thing. No, there's
Right.
really actually a problem that it's solving, and that's why they're requesting that. Yeah. Yeah, I
Right.
like that a
Yeah.
lot.
And
And
on the
that
flip side of that, if people are interested, we have monthly sprint reviews, and we love to have customers and partners involved in those too. It's the developers are showing whatever it is that they've been working on, so it's work that's still oftentimes in progress, and you're welcome to make comments or just watch and kind of get an idea for what's going to be in your next iMIS upgrade. So if you're interested in that, you can send an email to productowners@imus.com and we'll be happy to add you to that list. That email goes to the whole product team. So you can always send any questions to productowners@imus.com and we'll get back to those.
it's excellent, excellent. And I've been on a number of those. I've joined those at sprints, and actually, I do recommend if anyone can join them just to see what's going on in
Yeah.
behind. You get a preview. But one thing I did notice is that there's a number of comments that will happen throughout, and that feedback is actually taken in, and you'll see it in a future sprint. Oh, we did actually make that change
Yeah.
based on that feedback. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. It's not too uncommon especially if it's just a little tweak here or there, for the developer to go right back to their desk and just do it, because we appreciate that feedback, and we're making the product for the people that are going to use it. We're not making it for ourselves. So we want to do what we can to make sure that we deliver something that's going to be a good fit.
And that having that feedback and actually I've noticed that the numbers of attendees have really grown in the last couple of years. When I've jumped
Yeah.
in and the odd ones, "Oh, wow, hold on, there's a lot of people here."
Yeah.
And that's great to see. Yeah, yeah, so
Yeah.
it's
I think
becoming
we
more fun.
have 120 to 150 people at most of them.
That's a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they do get to see kind of what's coming down the pipe too, so they're exciting that way as well, and I think they're also posted up on the website too, is that right? At the sprint the past ones, can they
Yeah.
see them? Yep,
There is.
as
Yeah.
well
We
too,
have a,
yeah.
we have a sprint review, a notes page we record each review and then post it up there for, people in different time zones or people who just can't make one. So yeah, we can maybe get the URL out for that.
That's great. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, we can share that after. Well, that's great. And so let's go back to somebody who's trying to make a decision and maybe they're attending these sprint reviews, maybe they're, involved in the community, but really if you're kind of to say, okay, one thing or one piece of advice that you give any association leader that's got a big technology decision that they've got to make in front of them? Maybe it's changing platforms, or maybe it's just a big change to their existing platform. Yeah, what's one piece of advice you'd give that person?
Only one?
You can give your top 5, actually.
The top
I'm good
5.
with
All
that.
right.
All
I'll
right.
go for top 5. First of all, don't go in search of a system to settle a decision that hasn't been made. A lot of times people get frustrated with a system, whatever the system is, and it's mostly a matter of training. It's a matter of processes. The people don't necessarily know how to use the system. They're trying to do something in a way that the system isn't designed to do it. If you're going to go through the whole process of a technology change or any big technology project, make sure you understand the problem that you're trying to solve. I think that's probably the most important thing. Another thing that I think, if you're looking especially for a technology change, for a platform change, everybody always wants to talk to references of somebody who just went live, and
Yeah.
how was your experience, and that you can get some good information out of that. But I think it's also important, maybe more important, to talk to references who have been live for a couple of years. So they've had time to settle, they've had time for the system to settle into just their daily processes. I think that also can be invaluable. Right after an implementation, everybody's going to be a little bit on edge. Everybody's a little
Yeah.
trying to find their way around
Yeah.
and a little bit uncomfortable. 2 years in, they've had time to discover things with the system. They've had times to figure out how something can improve a process and make their work easier. So I think that's important too. At the end
Absolutely.
of the day, also, any big technology project is really about people. The system doesn't matter if the people aren't bought into it, if they're not part of the process, or they don't understand the goals of the changes. So it's important to make sure that you have the people involved and your people understand what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing, why you're making the changes, why you're bringing in a new initiative, why you're replacing software, why you're implementing software, any of those kind of things. No one ever regrets going slower on the people side, and everyone
Yeah.
regrets going faster on the technology side, right? You've got to balance those things out. You've got to give the people time to catch up and learn and buy in and be part of that process.
Absolutely. I'm with you 100% on that. And that's a great plug for me to talk about my podcast that I did a few weeks back on change management. So if you're looking for another episode to watch, definitely check that one out. And no, honestly, I think change management is key, and it's actually something that gets ignored. And I'm really glad you brought that up. And that was a great way to phrase it there. Don't rush into one and not the other. And it's easy to rush into the new technology for sure. Jeff, I've really enjoyed our chat today. Thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else that you wanted to share before you go and feed your friend there in the background? I heard him. Or, anything else you want to highlight before we jump off? Yeah.
I don't know. Shoot, I should have some words of wisdom, and
Well, you've already shared a lot. Yes.
I think I ran out. No, this has been great. It's been a lot of fun. It's always great to talk about the things that we're seeing, the trends that we've seen come and go over the years, and where we are now and where we're going. I think it all boils down to your people. Your people are your most valuable. Your people and your data are your most valuable assets for two very different
Yeah.
reasons. You've got to make sure that the people are on board with where you're going, and that'll really go a long way towards getting you where you want to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree. It always comes down to the people. Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Yep.
And I love your poster in the background, by the way. I have to note that. And I do know what that device is. It used to hold music. It's a cassette tape. We'll have that as a quiz at the end.
There
Thanks
you go.
again, Jeff.
Perfect.
Hey,
All right.
really
Thanks,
enjoyed it.
James. It's been great.
Take care. Talk to you soon.
All right, that is a wrap. You're listening to the Modern Membership Org podcast. My name's Riley, your secondary host for today's episode. Big thanks to Jeff and James for jumping on and running with that show. Plenty of insights there. If you want to catch any of those details, those are in the show notes, including the links that Jeff was referencing there today. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to listen to more, we come out every Tuesday. And you can subscribe on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, or even on YouTube. All of those, again, available in our show notes. And if you want to go above and beyond, give us a little rating while you're at it. Amazing. It just helps us reach more industry leaders and partners on a lot of the topics that we're talking today. If you have suggestions for future podcast episodes, feel free to reach out, info@burstingsilver.com. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Thanks.